Well, I greatly appreciate the chance to be here. You've had quite a few distinguished speakers in the past recently, so it's nice to, I feel honored to be added to the list. I've been asked to talk about the new book that I have that just came out just within the last 2 weeks. It's entitled At the Brink, Will Obama Push Us Over the Edge? And I think, like maybe a lot of Americans, there's a lot of really crucial things that are happening right now. I think, unfortunately, in some areas, the president's policies have permanently damaged the country. There are other areas where I think we're close, that things can still be fixed and disaster can be averted in some areas. But I'm going to try to go through a few of the topics that I have, everything from health care to the economy generally to gun control. I know, just on gun control, there's been a lot of things that have been happening over even just the last couple weeks. I was in Colorado a couple weeks ago, and it's the first time I've kind of heard of a White House getting involved in the passage of state legislation, where the big news when I was there was apparently Vice President Joe Biden had just been calling up members of the state legislature there, kind of lobbying them, saying that if they voted the right way, the president would help campaign for them this next year, and if they voted the wrong way, they may end up facing primary opponents. And according to legislators I talked there was about 7 Democrats who had switched their votes enough to get 4 gun control bills through the state house. So there's a lot of things that are happening right now. But what I'd like to try to start off with is the general issue of health care, because I think we've had the best health care system in the world, and I'm just going to briefly go through some of the changes that I think are happening and what you can expect in the next year or so. Unfortunately, I think this is one area that the president's not going to compromise, and I think there's a good chance that we'll see the destruction of private health insurance in this country relatively quickly. Among the big changes that we've seen over the last 4 years is a lot of pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer and Merck, others have cut research staffs by about 50% in many cases. We've seen huge increases since the Obamacare regulations have gone into effect in terms of health insurance premiums. If you just look at over time here, you can see these are from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, their Consumer Price Index numbers on the price of health care insurance. You can see it was rising up until the end of 2007 and then pretty much falling until the beginning of 2011. And then we've had, over the next 24 months, you had about a 20% increase in the price of health insurance, private health insurance. And that change basically started right when the Obamacare regulations started to go into effect. You stopped seeing this drop in health insurance premiums and this huge increase. So I don't know if you know who Donna Brazile is, but she's someone who ran Al Gore's campaign. She's been very strongly involved in politics. And for anybody who's been following this, her comments this last week were kind of funny because she was apparently had gotten a big increase in her private insurance premium for health care. And she had called up her provider saying, "What's going on? Why did I get this big increase?" And, here's the deal with that. And that is the president basically promised that private health insurance would be able to offer a lot more services and lower their costs. Well, if that was true, we wouldn't have to mandate them to do that. If I could be a consultant and go to a company and say, "Look, I have a way that you can offer your customers a lot more different services than they get right now, and it'll save you money," they would pay you for that advice. You wouldn't have to force it on them. And the very fact that so many insurance companies objected to these regulations should tell you whether or not they actually expected to be saving the money or not. Now, what's going to be happening over the next, starting in January this next year, I think is the real damage that's going to be occurring. And that is the way the changes are coming about is it'll make it so you can wait until you're sick before you have to buy your health insurance. And then as soon as you're well again, you'll be able to drop it. You can just imagine how automobile insurance would work if you could wait till you got into a car accident, bought insurance, got your car fixed, and then drop it. It would no longer be insurance in that case. The cost of you buying, quote, insurance in that case would essentially be the cost of you fixing the car. And there's going to be a lot of people who presumably are going to feel that this is somehow gaming the system to only get the health insurance when you actually get sick, and they'll feel bad doing that. But what's going to happen is as more and more other people drop insurance until they get sick, the premiums are going to rise. They're going to have to rise essentially to cover the high cost of just only covering the people who are sick. And as the premiums go up more and more, those other people who may feel it's bad to game the system, more and more of them are going to say, look, we're just essentially being smucks here by going and having the insurance all the time. We're going to do like everybody else, and eventually the system will collapse. Now, the way it was kind of sold as solving that problem was that if you didn't buy insurance, you were supposed to go and pay a fine. The thing is, you're going to save so much money, and this fine really isn't working out the way it was originally promised. So, for example, the cheapest insurance that you're going to be able to buy as an individual when these exchanges get started is going to be about $7,100. For a family, that's for an individual. For a family of 4, the cheapest insurance that the government's going to allow you to buy is going to be over $20,000. Now, you compare it to what the premiums are now for individuals. It's about $5,000 for an individual. That's the average price of private insurance. So you can just see an average of a little bit over $5,000 to over $7,000. And for a family of 4, the average right now is a little bit over $14,000. So they'll go from a little bit over $14,000 to $20,000. That's just going to happen with these exchanges when they get set up next year. Now, so that's the cost of insurance, but you were supposed to pay a fee or fine if you didn't have insurance. Well, for somebody who makes about $50,000, that fine would be about $1,600. If you make $100,000, it'd be over $2,000. But the thing is, you really probably won't even have to pay that, even though that's already quite a bit less than what the insurance would cost you. And the reason is because in the Obamacare bill, it's set up so that the IRS basically will find it impossible to collect the money from anybody. You know, the IRS, it sounds scary that the IRS is in charge of collecting it, but what happens is when you read the legislation, all the normal tools that the IRS has to collect, they're explicitly forbidden from using, so that they can't go and attach your income. They can't go and attach your assets. All the things, the threats that they would normally have are forbidden to them. The only thing that they can do is if you overpay your taxes, then when you would normally get a refund back, they're allowed to keep your refund. But how do you solve that? Everybody who pays income taxes knows how to solve that. You just increase your deductions so you're not overpaying your taxes. And so really the trade-off isn't going to be, do I pay this $1,000 fine for a lot of people versus saving $7,000 by not getting the insurance until I have to. It's going to be essentially paying 0 fine and then going and saving the insurance premium that's there. $7,000 you'd save each year that you're healthy, or $20,000 you save each year that your family's healthy, is a lot of money to save, and it's hard to believe that most people would pass up saving $20,000 a year for their family when I'm sure there's lots of other things they could go and spend their money on. But you can only imagine what happens if everybody decides that they want to go and save that $20,000. This program that was being set up as supposedly a way of making sure everybody's going to get insured is going to find very quickly that nobody's going to want to go and have health insurance at that point. And real problems are going to ensue because relatively quickly then, as soon as people realize that, private health insurance will essentially cease to exist. Now, I just want to give you an idea of what we're giving up, what's being destroyed here. You know, before I mentioned the pharmaceuticals, the fact is that with these huge cuts in research staffs, it means that drugs that would have been developed previously aren't going to be developed. That means lives that would have been saved aren't going to be saved. It means that people